Sustainable Development Policy Institute, Islamabad, and Network for Clean Energy Transition in Islamabad, Pakistan. I welcome you all to the consultative discussion on power wheeling reforms for offtake of renewable energy, options and challenges for Pakistan's corporate sector. As we all know that the energy sector plays a vital and important role in the development and economic growth of the country. The availability, accessibility, and affordability of energy for the people across the country is necessary for the economic progress as well as social uplift of the citizens. The rapid technological advancement and unique commercial dynamics of the power sector pose complex challenges for the policymakers and planners to develop a sector capable to ensure energy security and affordability for all the segments of the society. In the context of green energy, power wheeling could play an important role in increasing renewable power to the system. Wheeling is a process through which efficiency is achieved by shifting least cost power to where it is required. It is the first step in attaining competitive market. Despite its benefit, there are some technical and challenges associated with this concept. To know in depth about the power wheeling ecosystem in Pakistan, I would firstly request Dr. Hassan Daud Bhatt for his opening remarks. Thank you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you so much. First of all, let me just acknowledge SGPI. I represent SGPI, but still let me acknowledge all my colleagues for setting up a stage and discussion point for something that is very important. And I would also like to thank each one of the participants from the regulators point of view and also from distribution and also the consumers. I see some of my colleagues from the industry also here. Why is this so important? And I'm luckily I get this chance to set the opening discussion and agenda from here. Why is it so important? When I was the CEO of KP Board of Investment, and prior to that, when I was leading the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, I had the opportunity to work on several projects. But one thing that perhaps was a reason of removing some of the hair from my head was the wheeling chapter in KP. We did a lot of exercise. We had this good experience of doing it through Pahur and supplying it to our industrial state. But then in the later stage, a lot of difficulties came. We went to the second stage, and I hope there's a representation from KP here also. If they're not, so yeah. So I think they would also highlight some of the problems. But again, we had to go through a lot of regulatory and perhaps legal headwinds, and addressing those headwinds are very important. And I'm sure today's discussion will give us an idea. But please remember a few things. I'm not an energy expert, but I'm a management and projects management expert, and of course working with China most. I would just like to highlight a few things, and perhaps that could be an area where for public sector, novelty remains a challenge. It is a challenge for various reasons. It could be sometimes you look at NAB and sometimes you look at other things. Sometimes the discussion that we have in our public sector domain are difficult. But that does not in any way reflects that they do not have the capacity to engage into new ideas and novel ideas. And I tell you why. When we started doing CPEC in 2013, it was a nightmare. Energy projects were so difficult. And I had just returned from China. There was a lot of discussion about 40 stakeholders, including the security agencies. But then when the mission was set and when we realized that energy, because in those days we had issues of scarcity of electricity, we realized that this is a challenge and this is a target which was given to us by the government. And then, of course, by the help of public sector, and I will, I mean, with all respects to private sector, because this time has come, and I'll speak on that, on especially in the public-private partnership domain. But at that time, it was all public sector, and in we were able to get about 22 billion US dollars of investment in our energy sector in just less than 3 years. And if that does not amazes us, and if that does not makes us to believe on ourselves, nothing else will. And that means that we can, if we set our course right and address the headwinds, we can address any challenge that comes our way. Whether we are from KP, whether we are from, and it was challenge. Tharkor was a challenge. And I cannot tell you the amount of travel and effort that was put in that. Getting the winds in Sindh, wind projects in Sindh was a challenge, and then telling the Chinese that it is a challenge. But I have few takeaways from that, and I will urge all of you to look at those and do not think yourself whether you're representing NEPRA, whether you're representing PIDO, whether you're representing private sector, or me representing all, and perhaps academia also. And this is a great example of triple helix discussion that we are having. Let's talk on a national agenda. And that national agenda, ladies and gentlemen, is to support industrialization in Pakistan. This country cannot transform unless we look at industrialization in Pakistan. Your children, my children will not get jobs unless we promote industrialization in Pakistan. And that can only happen if we provide, because it's a competitive world. There are no boundaries in globalization, and globalization, the way that it's being promoted and challenged. And therefore, we must make our industry competitive. And for doing this, we need to provide them cheaper sources of ingredients that they have, whether they are raw material, whether it's the energy source or any other source that we provide. And when God has given us so much of natural endowment, it's just leveraging that. And with great minds, young minds, I see all youngsters, I'm comparing it with myself. Why can't we find solutions? 3 years I spent on addressing the wheeling challenges, because there was a petition and we could not convince the legal fraternity on why is it so important and urgent. Because like for any decision to take place and for justice to prevail, it has to be timely decision. आज आप अपनी एनर्जी की यूनिट 75, I think 75 industries bidded for phase 2. Just imagine 75 units being set up in any of, and it's just Pakistan. You just can't say it's KP or it's Sindh or it's Punjab. So what I would urge you is to look at today's discussion and any discussion that follows henceforth, to where your innovation and R&D have. I've just come back from China, and the amount of R&D and research they're doing in energy sector is immense. And I'm not saying this कि यहाँ पर हम आते हैं, बैठते हैं, discussion होती है और बर्खास्त हो जाते हैं. I think आप सब solutions लेकर आएंगे. मैं अपनी जब भी जाता हूँ डिस्कस करने के लिए CPEC wise, so I, especially with the youngsters, I always tell them by 2030, perhaps when the projects, I might not be on this planet, but surely those youngsters and you guys will be here. So this means that whatever you're doing today can reflect on our economy and the challenges that our economy have. When one of the challenging sector is the energy, किसको नहीं पता कि क्या IMF को हमें आके बताने की जरूरत है that energy sector is the disturbed sector. So let's forget the past. Let's look at the future, and wheeling is one aspect which talks about our future. Wheeling is one aspect that talks about providing cheaper source of energy to anyone who comes and bid, and not just for us, for any industrialist or any investor that comes in. It's a 220 million and growing, mashallah, population. So investors are looking at us, and हमारे यहाँ बहुत सारे एक वो डूम्सडे मर्चेंट्स फिर रहे होते हैं, but I tell you, I deal with investors day in day out. They come to me, energy. They come to me on, every day I hear from Chinese a call and they're telling me हम आना चाहते हैं in renewables. And investment happens in war zones also. So therefore हम कोई भी idea, and also I would, and this is my request to the government officials and people representing the public sector, एक principle आप set कर लें सर, मेरी आपसे सबसे गुजारिश कि जो वादा करें ना वो पूरा करें, जो भी वादा करें, वरना ना करें. ये जरूरी नहीं है कि हर गवर्नमेंट आए तो एक नई पॉलिसी आए. And I'm telling you two things, and I naturally my PhD is on Chinese philosophy. I'll take few examples from, and this is a highly technical discussion we will have after this. But I'm just setting the stage for novelty needs philosophy also. So I think एक तो आप याद रखिए, you do not fit in other shoes. ये चाइनीज की 5000 ओल्ड कन्फ्यूशियस saying. तो आपने जो भी आइडियाज लाना है, आप जैसे एक्सपर्ट से लाना है जो कि यहाँ पे होम ग्रोन एक्सपर्टीज रखते हैं, होम ग्रोन चैलेंजेस को एड्रेस करते हैं. Because nobody will come from outside and tell us what our problems are and how to address them. We will address them. So you do not look at others, look at, be more perhaps introvert in finding solutions to the problem. Secondly, for us to grow, I think it's important to get rich, because for getting rich, I think it's important to have industrialization and fast industrialization in Pakistan. So therefore, but I would, based on my own experience with the wheeling, I will request you for few things. A, anything that you put, especially in this wheeling aspect, be as transparent as possible. चाहे वो बिडिंग का प्रोसेस हो सर आपका, चाहे वो नेपरा का एस्पेक्ट हो, चाहे वो ट्रांसमिशन का एस्पेक्ट हो, चाहे वो जनरेशन का एस्पेक्ट हो, be as transparent as possible. That will help you and that will help the consumer also. Your business community, if the bidding process is simple and straightforward, they will get encouraged to help you in public-private partnership. Because without public-private partnership, we cannot accelerate. Government does not have the funds and resources to initiate on new ideas and projects. अभी आप देख लीजिए सक्खर मुल्तान, सक्खर हैदराबाद, we have done one very good highway now with the Chinese, especially whether it's Chinese. We are now looking at other projects. And हमें देखिए, मैं सिर्फ एक हम गवादर की इतनी बात करते हैं. So much of discussion we do about गवादर. 10 मेगावाट पूरे लसबेला डिस्ट्रिक्ट के लिए आते. Now, because of you guys and expertise like you, now we are importing from Iran. Now 100 megawatt perhaps will happen this month, and then the 300 megawatt energy project. So आप लोग ने ही इस पे डिसीजन लिया, और आप लोगों की डिस्कशन एंड कंसल्टेटिव एफर्ट एंड SGPI जैसे इदारों ने इसको पुश. Wheeling is a must. Wheeling is brilliant idea, concept, whether it's for KP, whether it's for AJK, or whether it's for GB. इन सब के लिए बहुत अच्छा है. हमें, अगर हम बहुत दफा फॉर वेरियस रीजन इंक्लूडिंग एनवायरनमेंट, इस व्हीलिंग को AJK और GB के लिए इतना प्रमोट नहीं करते, बट आई थिंक इट्स इक्वली इम्पोर्टेंट फॉर दोज टू इम्पोर्टेंट पार्ट्स ऑफ आवर कंट्री. सो आपने इसके लिहाज से जरूर देखना है, और इससे इसको सिर्फ हाइडल से एसोसिएट ना करें, इसको ऑल रिन्यूएबल फॉर्म्स के साथ एसोसिएट करें. सेकंड मेरी रिक्वेस्ट है कि इसके अंदर जो चैलेंजेस आएंगे वो 3 किस्म के होंगे. एंड दिस इज आई एम सेइंग फ्रॉम माय ओन एक्सपीरियंस. एक टेक्निकल होंगे जिसको आप लोगों ने एड्रेस किया. दूसरे ह्यूमन रिसोर्स कैपेसिटी के भी होंगे. आपकी ह्यूमन रिसोर्स उस तरह ट्रेन नहीं है कि वो रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी को कि डिविडेंड्स अक्रू कर सके in the right context. We perhaps in Islamabad are much more, but areas where this will happen, and this problem will start immediately when land acquisition happen for any projects. और इस लिहाज से हमने उस human resource capacity को, and institutions like STPI have to play important. तीसरा ये है कि आपने जो idea and the way the technology is changing and so rapid changing. I used to travel about 3 times a month to China. But this time when I went after COVID, it was like a cultural shock for me, because technology has changed so much in these 2 years in China, and we're dealing with them. We're competing with them in terms of industrial things. So उस लिहाज से जो idea perhaps जब ये शुरू हुआ था wheeling का 2019 के अंदर, उस वक्त और आज 2023, and then moving forward, ideas, concept, regulatory frameworks will change. आपने नए आइडिया और इसके अंदर जिद्दत, जितनी आप जिद्दत लाएंगे, जितनी इनोवेटिव आइडियाज एंड रिफॉर्म्स लाने की कोशिश करेंगे, और ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस और इनेबलिंग एनवायरनमेंट क्रिएट करेंगे, हम सब के लिए अच्छा है, हमारे बच्चों के लिए अच्छा है. और वो 1.3 to 2.5 मिलियन people which enter job market each year उनके लिए अच्छा है, और हमारे वो तमाम इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट के लिए बहुत अच्छा है जो कि इस मुल्क के लिए जिहाद कर रहे हैं, इस मुल्क के लिए सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं. So with this, I hope I was not sounding like a politician, but with this discussion, I would set the stage for you to give your points, but also while highlighting challenges, please recommend the way forward so that today we get better educated and we have better ideas for addressing the challenges and headwinds of the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Hassan, for highlighting the importance of wheeling and challenges that comes in wheeling. We are also joined online panelists as well. There are some instructions for our online panelists. On behalf of STPI, I welcome you all. May I please request our speakers keep their microphones off when they are not speaking to ensure good audio quality for everyone. Speakers are also encouraged to switch on their cameras, especially when they are speaking, if their network allows to do that without any distortion. The meeting will be recorded and the video will be posted online. You are welcome to revisit the discussion later and feel free to share it with your network. We also invite questions from our audience and colleagues at the end as the session goes. Please feel free to write them in the chat box or in the QA box on the right side. Please have the chat box open in the window, as well as you can also indicate that you want to speak by clicking the raise hand tab on the right side of the chat window. The session will also be telecasted live on STPI's Facebook page. For those watching us on Facebook Live, please write your questions in the chat there. They will be conveyed to the speakers to our team. Today's session will be moderated by myself. I am Ayman Zulfikar, Project Associate from Sustainable Development Policy Institute. Going forward, STPI and NSIT are conducting evidence-based research to support the energy market reforms in Pakistan. Since 2019, government of Pakistan has observed a renewed interest towards renewable energy in its policy and regulatory landscape. Further, the corporate sector is also looking to adopt green alternatives to incorporate sustainability into their production cycles for better availability and affordability. Even at the informal sector, solar is being extensively used to provide off-grid energy access to the marginalized communities. To support the policy targets, especially for renewable energy uptake in the corporate sector, stakeholders have identified the need for efficient power transmission and distribution through reforms, especially the power billing regulations. Propelled by the CTBCM competitive trading bilateral contracts market model recently implemented and power wheeling policy to be soon introduced by the NEPRA. The exploration of options for combating bidding and auctions can provide the path for retaining the government of Pakistan renewable energy targets and efficient T&D mechanism. On behalf of STPI and SIT, it gives me an immense pleasure to welcome you all on this consultative discussion on power wheeling reforms for offtake to renewable energy, options and challenges of Pakistan corporate sector. I will firstly wanted to introduce all our panelists, which are joined. Some of are joined in person with us, and some are online. We have over here with us Mr. Gul Hassan Bhutto, who is the advisor CTBCM at National Electric Power Regulatory Authority, NEPRA. Mr. Safdar Hayat from PIDO. Mr. Ahmed Tanveer Qazi, who is Manager Market Design and Development from Central Power Purchasing Agency, CPPA. Mr. Umar Malik, who is the Chief Executive Officer at Shams Power Limited. Furthermore, we have with us Mr. Muhammad Salman Khan, who is the Secretary General of Sawabi Chamber of Commerce. We have from academia, we have Ms. Afia Malik, who is the Senior Research Economist from Pakistan Institute of Development Economics, PIDE. We have Mr. Amar Qasim from Energy Policy Analyst. And we have with us Dr. Khalid Waleed, who is a research consultant from STPI. We have also with us Akil Jafri from AEDB. And we have Alia Adris from K-Electric. Now I will start our moderated discussion. I'll request Mr. Gul Hassan Bhutto for his keynote address. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
So, is the permission there to give few slides specific to the wheeling?
Absolutely.
I think to set the stage, I feel that people should know what framework is there, and then what the stage we are talking about. What is already on the ground? What we promised 30 years back to the nation, and what we are today. So I will have good enough lead from your talk. That's all.
Thank you, sir.
So allow me to share the presentation for 15 to 20 minutes, very precisely on the wheeling. So how can I do this? If I need to, go. Organizing such a wonderful session, well in time, need of the time, I would say, and inviting NEPRA here. In my chairman, NEPRA was traveling to Karachi, and then thanks to him, he asked me that, Bhutto, you can go and speak what we have done in that front. So starting to be precise with when we talk about the power wheeling, I would say it's a very subset of a power market. It's a very subset of a CTBCM, basically a bilateral trade, competitive trading, bilateral contract market. When you call it, that means I need to Bhutto as a need to produce, and then industrialist as a Dr. Hassan Daud want to pick my electrons. So there is the game starts that if I have a hydro in KP, and then Dr. Saab wants to pick his electrons in Multan, so there is a catch that who is going to wheel that electrons from production point to a consumption point. So there are three elements. There's a generation, there is a network involved to wheel it, and we have there that who is consuming it. In between, if we do not have the wheel, there is a generator available, there is a demand of industry available there, but the network in between is the regulated part that we were talking about. CTBCM is all about nothing less, nothing more, superset of wheeling regulations, how to wheel a power from one point to another point with the beauty of a policy, regulatory, and the law supporting that it's in a deregulated manner to the extent of 86% of a cost of consumer. That includes the generation, and just regulation is to the part of 10% that you call it, let's say 4% for transmission charge, and then you would call it as a 6% for 10% for distribution margin cost, and 4% for the transmission cost. How do I do this number today? Size of the sector is 2.9 trillion, 2,500 billion we pay for generation, 400 about 112 billion we give to NTDC to wheel a power at the bulk, and then in the revenue requirement, all 10 discos may have 285 to 300 billions distribution margin. So game is where the question is where the efficiency comes, where is the opportunity the consumer can reduce the tariff. So the answer comes 80% of the cost, 2,500 billion, that is the generation. So the network, you cannot generate and wheel from one state to another, other to theirs. This has to live in a natural monopoly, and then how things flow. So where is the liberty in complete value chain and where we are standing, we will explore this one ahead. It's not moving. Okay. So quickly, we had a wheeling regulation in 2016, and we are now 6 years later, only we have in the country the two wheeling agreements, one operative, other in litigations. Four is working, but let's say FATMA, others, and some are in the litigation. What were the issues? So we would map it with the ground realities, how the global market was studied and reformed, and then accordingly the design of the regulatory framework was brought for to ensure that market where the bilateral trade can happen. Similarly, there was a missing limbs of the institutions like market operator, and who would be operating at a central point, and what would be the administration, governance, and settlement rules. Was that only 10 pages regulation enough to do that one, or a market code that has been approved about 200 plus pages is the better version, reform version for that? We will talk about it. Was that the giving a regulation and giving a code and carrying an electron from one point or other was a sufficient? Knowing the fact that the electricity is produced, travels with the speed of a light, and you cannot store it. So you need to have a technology intervention at the generation and the transmission and altogether. Was the technology sufficient enough? No. Like Dr. Saab said, 3 people, process, and technology reform was required. So all this CTBCM brought in 3 areas: people, process, and technology. We will discuss little on that one, that now how we are better than what we were in 2016, and now in April 2023, when the market starts, so-called in a leaner word in subsidized power wheeling, it starts, then what the skying regulatory policy framework supports that. We will talk on that. And then moving ahead, does it starts that the wheeling today in the market is about the bulk power consumers. So how the market would evolve ahead, we will touch upon that one. Then of course, then panel discussion or Q&A or so. What you commit that you deliver to nation in 1992, we committed that we will bring the market for the 4 purpose for corporatization, privatization, and competition and efficiency. We corporatize, we didn't privatize, we delayed the competition, and accordingly, the debundling was done in 97, 2002, all discourse 10 licenses, entities license, and 2015, CPPA was taken out from NTDC. Why? To purchase electricity at the center on behalf of DISCO? Answer is no. Bring a design for a market and to go ahead, but we had to have a transition body also at the center that can leverage the purchase and altogether. Accordingly, market design was brought by the CPP in 2019, high level one, approved on 5 December 2019, and the detailed one was directed to the CPPAG, the team that is from the market operator like Shahir and my colleague is sitting. They brought in the detailed design, and the NEPRA approved it November 12, 2022. That how the market would look like, how we would have to reform in institution form, in regulatory form, in policy form, in process form, and technology form. All 18 group of actions were identified, and so and so. Was that sufficient? No. Where was the will and wit of the government? So CCI approved the any policy 2021. That gives a boost to that one, that we want the market. So complete chapter is into that one. What we committed in November 2022, that and ECC, what EC, CMOD is the term that the commercial market operation date. ECC extended date of that market that was supposed to come in 2012. When this design and altogether operations are extended, that the May 2022 is the last date we have to come on that one. So that promise was completed on the 31st of May 2020 while giving a market operator license to the CPPA. So the policy side, the regulatory side, institutionalized what they promised, they delivered dot on that one. This is just history, how the sector was bundled. We had to, what we committed in 1992, we had to privatize the distribution companies, we have to privatize the transmission companies, we have to not to enter into thermal plants. All this IPPs has to come over there, and then we have to give a choice to the bulk power consumers accordingly. So we are coming in the right direction. This was the structure we call how you liberate to the markets. In the market, choice is basically is a wheeling through introduce the choice. There was a VIU, everything was bundled. Then there was let's say in 2002 when discourse came up, we liberalized the 86% of the cost generation. We called upon the IPPs that the capital is scarce. Country may not have that much money to develop that one. Think of today, 40,000 megawatt installed we have, and then 50% of that is from private sector, and then 50% is from public sector. So what is the point here to pick? What we started in single buyer regime, that we got a success, that we brought the investor into the supply chain at the generation side. So when this was saturated and we have success here, now there comes the call that this is the wholesale competition, that the choice to consumer should be now given. That came from, that couldn't be brought from certain single regulatory regulations. For that one, you need to have a law. For that one, you need to have a policy. For that one, you need to expand the regulatory framework to define and formulate the rules of the game accordingly. There comes a catch that 2018 NEPRA Act was amended. So I would all the time say that we say that the 1992 reforms were done, but why it was delayed? We required to have a law, and the law was amended with respect to the market in 2018. And from 18 onward, you see the speed that we are on dot, and nation have not missed anything. So here is the choice. We have entered into the third phase of the market reforms. Everywhere in the world, these are the four steps. You start with the VIU structures, then you have the single buyer regime, then you have a wholesale, and the last step is the retail market, means the choice to every consumer, even a residential house to that one. So we are starting on the April 2023 the commercial operations of the market on the in 2023. Moving down maybe 5, 6, 10 years, we have to the retail options. This is very simple. What is today? You have 10 discos, CPPA buys on their behalf, and they under the power purchase agency agreement, discos has given the agency role to them, and then CPPA purchase from IPPs. This is something, the legacy, not to spend too much time. What is changing now? I would say, let's say, for example, in future, all 10 discos, maybe you can say that the K Electric is on the nth level of these bilateral markets, because they purchase the electricity without sovereign guarantee. They meet their demand through the privates or something like that. On the regulated front, on the non-regulated front, let's say, discos 10 and KE would remain as a regulated one. So on that one bilateralization part, they have their own cost of service, own tariff, and so. So we want to see the discos now buying their electricity at own, keeping their demands in the future. That's a one component, and this market gives to the private also a pool. Centralized pool would no more be available from April onward. That would be the bilateral. Now here we have the two things. Producer and suppliers. When we call about the suppliers, we are talking about the two suppliers. Supplier of last resort means K Electric and 10 distribution companies. They are the supplier of last resort to continue with the as is basis in a regulated, with the regulated license, the tariff, and then so all performance standards of NEPRA applicable. The only thing is they see their demand, they buy accordingly at their own with respect to your demand, rather than center procures for them from top to bottom approach. Now it's a bottom to approach, so that they are liberalized. And that was the goal of private, debundling too. I give you an example. We have a 40,000 megawatt in a center, and you are going to privatize one disco. And we spoke about that the 86% distribution is nothing. 2.9 trillion distribution is 0.3 trillion. Let's say 300 billion. 2,500 billion is your generation cost. If I buy a ISCO, I would say, who is going to take care of this generation liability? So you cannot split it. So this CTBCM allocated that generation to every disco as per their share. Pool is freezed. Now future procurement they would be doing. That's big push to the privatization at a regulated part also. This is simple. Who are into the market? Disco would have now two roles, not the single, two license. There would be the wire company, separate. They can facilitate they are the suppliers. They facilitate their suppliers a different license under section 23 and different license under wire. As a wire company, they can facilitate me as an Ubuntu also if I want to install a generator and wheel that electron and take it forward to that one. Their role is to the network also as a service provider, but as a market participant is the one that is a competitive one. Two terms that we would be repeating in the market participant and service provider. NTDC is a service provider. CPPA would be a market operator as a service provider. Don't have a function is a kind of a service provider, means not a commercial interest. So generator, trader, BPCs were suppliers, competitive suppliers are market participant. And then when we would be talking about the MO, market operator as a CPPA, system operator as an NTDC, and the CPPA to deal with the legacy, all this is about the service providers choice we give to BPC into the consumer. Very simplistic slide. What products we are selling? Now I take a lead from Darsab. Darsab say that what we are going to sell. हम बेचने क्या जा रहे हैं? The earlier rules of the game in the wheeling was selling of energy. There was a no hisab kitab of a capacity. That was a big problem to the failure to that wheeling. So अब उस wheeling के concept को reform करने, we have foreigners also here. So that I can balance. So then, so the word was that this, I mean, this is something like that. I have a wheeling agreement with Dr. Khalid. And I am a solar plant. I'm having a 100 megawatts solar peak with him. Let's say 100 megawatt contract is in the day I generate. In the night, he's off. Then my load, Khalid is speaking from the network. Who pays for that capacity? Disco pay for the capacity. That means the disco or network brought a capacity for them that is not utilized fully. If you are a textile mill and you run in a 2 shift, that means in a 1 shift, let's say 2 shift, that 1 shift. One day you pick from your solar, and even you have a peaking, you sell something. In the night, if you operate something, you are freely consuming from network, so the regulated cost is increasing. So the discipline is brought that the product anybody is doing a bilateral would not be a megawatt, but megawatt hours too, energy and capacity both. Other problem was that if I sold a solar of 100 units today, and then we had a 100 units contract, so there was a banking concept. I produce in a winter 100 unit, and you are not available in a let's say in winter. Now this is somebody else picked it. Demand of a winter is 8,000 megawatts. Say, let's say my pool price is, you have the 10 rupees, and demand of summer is 20,000 for Pakistan because our load is cyclic. So on 24, the marginal cost is, let's say, 20 rupees and 10 rupees. You couldn't consume in winter. Now you bank it. Now you draw in summer. Who pays for that one? You give me at a 10 rupees and you bought it on 24. That was a banking concept have been abundant. Now we have came to the balancing. There comes energy trade would be done on an hourly basis that required. So that's in a second point. that we had an issue with the wheeling. And of course, the capacity system was not there. We have the capacity over there. We talk about that one. That's where is the competition on the generation and supply side. That's clear that the consumer have to see his 86% of the cost and something margin from suppliers. So 90% of your cost you see don't care about the network and altogether. They are the people to taking care of this one, and this is a specialized business. Let them to do that one. So as a supplier, do what? You procure your own electricity, you price it, you sell it, you bill it, you collect it. That's your bilateral risk. Now, what the consumer benefits from the wheeling, power wheeling, a subset of CTBCM, we say he has an option to continue with the disco as is today. He has an option now to take it from any of the supplier or generator and so. So this in between the distribution and transmission remains in the monopoly. What is the percentage of that one? That's hardly, in terms of a total tariff, is 14%. We talk about 2.9 trillion, 2,500 is not at the cost of generation, and this has to, and this is a special business, you need to live there. What are we doing? So Darsab said already, I mean, in monopoly, we are there, we are long contracts, we have hedged the risk of investment, technology, credit, price, demand, and so, for example, in 2002 policy, we brought a RFO for 25 years. Everything was commissioned in 2013 and 15 for 25 years. Till 2040 or 30, you have contracts. But today, you are dispatching them zero. So what's the risk there? A, you don't have a fuel, but you have now in parallel investment, I mean, investment technology risk I'm comparing. You have this 5,000 megawatt of a 62% RLNG plants, Pikki, Baloki, Aveli. 62% plants are even at a dispatch of average 30-40%, and now 30% efficiency or 32% of an RFO. Ideally, this is reality of today. They are shut, but you need to pay them the capacity. So that was the risk in the remote. So when you liberalize it, when you go to the market, basically consumer risk was there. So this title is basically competition and regulation. We are complete in regulation. When you go into the competition, you basically divert the risk and altogether by auctions, reducing the consumers. Efficiency, you increase credit worthiness, you do in the bilaterals, you do away from the sovereign guarantee. Let the governments to do the business of education, roads, infrastructure, and so, and health, and in this. Let the people to trade into the electricity, which is the norm of the globes and everywhere. So all of just these benefits of the going from regulation to a competition that bilateral is doing. Every market is unique, but our design, seeing the ground reality, we need to promote the efficiency. There you have learned about the merit order, which is a cost base. If your cost is lower, you get dispatched. Similarly, so we have European market, we have an American markets. American markets are into the central dispatch, or we call them, they are in advance into price pool, and some are into the cost pools. So our design is central dispatch cost-based pool. That is the legacy. That's the adaptation into the design and change of design that with respect to Hamza. Now, very precisely to the wheeling and the CTBCM, that what were the issues I have spoken already, and I'm addressing it in details here. Now, it is very specific to the power wheeling. Electric power trading can be done in the discourse today, CTBCM. Now, I give you an example. 2016 wheeling regulations we had, but trade cannot be done more than disco. What's the problem? When the PDO find, let's say, I think Power or PDO find a consumer in maybe in another province, they couldn't wheel. The issue was when I inject the electrons, who is doing the metering? Who is managing with the settlements? That was the problem. Now we have a central system, central market operator for this to deal with this one and centralized. Transactions speedy because you need a standard approved market participation and service provider agreement done. This is done. Approved formats are there. You put your generator, you do a market participation agreement with the market operator, and then accordingly use of system agreement with that network. Everything is standard. Transparent, practical, because systems are there, and there was earlier regulations. Now you have the law behinding that the market has to be done. So policy is there. And we said about BME balancing mechanism on energy was already there on banking concept. Now we put it into a balancing hourly, and then balancing mechanism on capacity was not there. We have introduced this already. So this is a big thing that the earlier things were lacking, and this is improved. We said, but it would be market-based price settlements. For example, if Dr. Khalid has, I'm producing 100 unit and he had to take the 100 units, he did not pick it, then market picked it, I would be given the price of the market at that hour. I could not produce as a generator. I was in a downtime, but Khalid picked up 100 units. He would not be giving cost that we had bilateralized, but he would be charged on that hour the market price. So that's something, the efficiency and win-win situation for all. So you have market operator here, and other thing, you have the spot market option also. You don't find a consumer there. So come into the market, just give that you are available. If you're cheaper, you get dispatched against the system demand. That's a big thing for the renewables, for the wheelers and everything. When we talk about, less people are knowing that, even I was not also aware when I deep dive it. Is there a mechanism that you don't have a demand contracted and even you can sell it? This is a merchant. There comes also a CTBCM gives you an option of the spot market as a merchant or plant integration of KE systems, and altogether we have done it. So power wheeling obligations under wheeling. When we talk about the wheeling, basically this is something to tell you. This is diagram that I try to simplify. As a generator, 99% or 95% of generator has to be connected to transmission line. We agree. And this has to be connected in accordance with the grid code, which is fully revamped and restructured in terms of a market. That's a physical connection that application of a generator has to go to the transmission. This is something, the loopholes from market participant market code has been addressed. This is the framework and improvement area. Now application goes there, and then generator would be telling he has a contracted demand with the BPC, bulk power consumer, at the left side, right side I'm telling. In between, you have a TNO and DNO, let's say transmission network operator and distribution network operator, that we call open access. Is again a big word. Wheeling is a subset to the open access. How we expand it? So there is a superset. You have the CTBCM, you have the wheeling one part of that, and open access one part of that, and then with that you have the wheel. Basically, this is a objective the same, but the terminology may not be the mix in a way. So open access, exactly like that one. I'm traveling on my car to Lahore. On the M2 motorway, when I enter, I pay 1,000 rupee for rental, right? And I move on this road. So the road is a network, regulated thing. The FW has fixed a charge for they given me the open access to move from Islamabad to the Lahore. This is the open access regulated 1,000 rupees. They will charge me, but I, as a generator or a trader or a supplier, have something in my car. I travel through this road and landed at the exit at the Lahore and trade at my own price. So this is open access. It is called. Is that open access free? Now, what does it include? 5 things. We are misnomer. There are a few misnomers here I need to correct. When you get the open access, you have to pay 5 things. Transmission system charge. This is TSC. Market operator or system operator is part of system operator or market operator fee. Then in the transmission, you have the market system operator fee, then distribution system charge. Then you have to pay your losses. Then you have to pay the stranded cost and cross subsidy. These are the 5 costs that you need to pay. And this is not the cost determined by the TNO and TDC as a TNO, DISCO is a DNO. No, it's the NEPRA as a regulator of the sector would determine that cost, which is we said into the sector, it's the 14% of cost. Again, what you would be determining bilaterally, 80% cost of your electrons with the BPC. Now, generator got connected with the transmission. You got the open access under the open access regulations and other framework, and your electrons are moving. Now, here is the BPC. Now, the reverse story is then the consumption point, 95% of the, I would say 99% consumers are connected to the distribution network other than a few Paco or here have 220 grids. There's a bulk consumer of, let's say 40 and 90 megawatt, one in Lahore, 2 consumers or 3 consumers. Even Tawarki in Karachi also are the bulk consumers on 220 or something like that. Else 99% consumer you have on the distribution network. So the connection application of that consumer goes again to that particular distribution company, which is there according to distribution code, which is also revamped. Now you need to, this gives application, consumer gives applications to the distribution company. Your generator have to give application to that one. There's an obligation, they connect it. Now you as I as a competitive supplier for selling electrons to Dr. Khalid, I have to sign a power purchase, energy purchase agreement with the BPC. That should include 2 things: bilateral price, bilateral contract price, plus use of system charges, these 5 things. So I recover from Khalid use of system charges, which includes 5 things. Then this I have to pay to a network company. I have written their use of system agreement that I have to do with that one. This is the framework over there. There we can expand it in the questions, but let me expedite it more. Who are eligible? We are opening the market. You have the 16% of energy. We consume 130, we produce 150 billion units annually. We lose it 18% at the national average. We sell it, invoice it 135 billion at the cost of 2.9 trillion. And so you have 16% of that is the BPC, to which is an option. So 16% of 130, you can count about 15 to 20 billion units you are liberalizing, and their placement is in the various discos. Whom you can sell? You as a generator, as a wheeler, you can sell to K Electric. You were supposed to sell. You can sell to the discos. You were supposed to. Other option is a competitive supplier. You can sell now in a bilateral market through wheeling to B2B. You can come without in a wholesale market without the contract as a merchant. You can be a trader. You are a generator. Trader and supplier concept is in a way is a trader is a asset-led entity. Let's say, for example, I am the generator. Small generators captives are 10. They don't want to go to the market. I came as a trader. I aggregated the supply of these. And later on, I went to the demand side, aggregated the demand, and at the center with the market operator, I did a market participation agreement. I got registered my small generation. I got registered my demand. I traded there. You have the option also for that one. So avenues from April 2023 onward, you have a bigger one. It's not only the bilateral. When we speak about wheeling, power wheeling, it's everything is thinking about money. But what about the small generator who don't have any muscles or cost or capability add on? Even 1 megawatt or 5 megawatt contract can be sold without the demand. That becomes the merchant. How that can be done? Long is there, a lot is there to speak on that one. So we spoke. Act has been amended to that bilateral market merchant. And then regulations are brought, rules are brought, market operator is there, code is there, their connection agreements, standard templates and frameworks are done. IT institutional systems had been developed for market system, market operator license, system operator license. And then for the regulated discos, you have the auctioneers there. And each disco has to go in bilateral market, 20%. Market implementation regulatory affairs departments and the discos are operationalized. For this hourly metering service department has been created, established and operationalized within the disco since last last 6 months since the market is in dry run, millions of transactions on the wholesale point are gathered and then settlements are done. So we have different systems deployed at the SO and MO level. Then friends from Kazi and Saab and Shade Saab may expand it more. So capacity building and all together was important, like Darsab said also, 4,000 plus pages framework to support this whole wheeling framework has been done. That includes what? Your law, your policy, any policy we said, ARE policy we said, and then we said the 16 regulations, market code, grid code, commercial operating procedure, grid code, operating procedures, and center of excellence for capacity building has been created at the lumps, and 5,000 plus hours training hours for 18 entities has been done, and more or less hundreds of people has been certified over there. Exclusivity is gone in the law. Now you don't have an exclusivity there. Why? When the discos have a 20 years license in 2002 till 2020. So there was an exclusivity. Wheeling failure, one cause was that one, that you had a discos had a reason that they had an exclusive area. Now in 2018, exclusivity is gone. Distribution license is limited, separate into the network. Supplier license is separated. Two obligations are different, and second tier register, and then different regulations has been given to give effect to that market transaction. Second tier authorization is
If you kindly conclude. So
in
that-
5 minutes.
Yes.
Will be done. Will be done. So all these regulations, I would not go into the details. You would see all these regulations in year 2022, because the year of 2021 was making, advertising, consulting, and we did it. All this is related to the framework, precisely open access regulations 2022, and then performance standards, 3-4 regulations are here, particularly for the wheeling, therefore, where you can do it. Rest is, we have talked about this, options of merchant, B2B bilateral already. These are the 20 chapters in market commercial code, how you enroll to trade, how you contract, how your metering would be done, how balancing would be done, how capacity would be treated, and what would be the payment mechanism, and so all together. This is complete market commercial code. So how you participate is the big question. You just give a 1 year notice to a disco, then negotiate the tariff bilaterally, and but when I'm negotiating the contract with the Khalid, there is a lock in the market. You at least contract for the 2 years. 1 year notice to the disco so that they balance their capacity. They have procured something for you. If you're going into the market, law says 1 year market, and when you are going out, at least do a 2 years contract so that tomorrow you do not fall back to me, and then I don't have a capacity for you. So that this one. If I default as a competitive supplier, now where does the Dr. Khalid go? So the existing disco is obligated to remain as a supplier of last resort. Now, would this procedure would be the same? A new industry, new connection is coming. For this one, no notice, nothing, only sign a connection agreement and formalities and all together enter into the market. Simple, we do a bilateral PPA, and then we as a consumer, you give a connection application to the disco, and then you sign a EPA with me, and then important is get registered with the market operator. For through if you are a consumer, you risk is yours. You come as a market participant. If I cover your all risk, then I as a generator have to do a market participation agreement, and wheeler as a NTDC or a disco will have to sign a service provider agreement once in for all the contracts in that room that they would be wheeling that one. So all this is the framework. And technology interventions, 800 plus meters has been installed across the CDP point, common delivery points. And so now you come up with the BPC. My last slide. When you come up as a BPC, you would be your metering services would be given by the NTDC. Your commercial services would be given by the CPPAG. In the future, now you are selling electricity, energy and capacity. In the future, you would be selling the ancillary, and then we would be giving option to less than 1 megawatt. Means today we have a 32 million consumers. So we are giving a choice this to limited to 4,000 to 5,000 consumers, 16% energy, short-term trading price. Today we are cost-based pool. We can move to the price-based. What is this price-based? So Khalid says, I as a generator come into the market, and Khalid comes as a demand. He says, I can pay 10 rupees. I generator, I accept that one, no long contracts, and then we go on a short-term trading. This is the future. So every country, different countries, they started with this reforms. So Brazil started with the 3 megawatt, and so we have started with the 1 megawatt, and then option for the sale. And in the future, we will reduce that one, and the choice would be with everybody. With this, I close my presentation here. Thank you. If I have exhausted more time, this topic was very close to my heart, and you choose a very good topic also. It giving me an opportunity to expand what has already been done.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable information on wheeling and overall CTPCM model. And now I would request Mr. Umar Malik, who is the CEO of Shams Power Limited, to kindly share his views on power wheeling system of Pakistan. Thank you.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'll just introduce myself first. My name is Umar Malik. I'm the CEO of Shams Power. We are a distributed solar developer. We set up solar power plants and sell electricity to our clients under long-term power purchase agreements. These are predominantly commercial and industrial companies like Coca-Cola, Metro, Axo, Shifa Hospital, etc. I'm a little stretched to add to all the things Jo Bhutto Saab ne already keh diye, because his presentation was very elaborate, and he was very articulate in explaining CTBCM and all of its caveats. What I'd like to add is just at a high level that you know, the way, I'm sorry, I think my camera was still off. The way we see the CTBCM market is that it is the key enabler for Pakistan to deliver economically priced electricity to our commercial and industrial sector. Whatever has happened so far in terms of government procurement of power over the last 20-30 years has led to the power pricing being what it is. There is a large element of subsidies also that the government keeps doling out every year to various sectors. Wheeling is one step away from all of that. There is a private buyer and a private seller. There are no government guarantees. There is no government risk of paying capacity charges or giving sovereign guarantees. The private company who is setting up the plant does it at their own cost, does it at their own risk, and the entity buying the power decides to buy it. There are no subsidies involved. And if for some reason the buyer of electricity does not pay the supplier of electricity, then it is the supplier's risk. The government doesn't lose out in that case. The point that we have that we need to elaborate here is that there is no risk on the government end. There is no capex on the client end. So it's a win-win for both sides. Comparatively speaking, if you look at our export sectors like textiles or others, they are today not comparative with the rest of the world. Countries like India and Bangladesh, specifically because power is a very large component, or aaj unki jo power ki pricing hai is completely out of alignment with what international prices are. when they come to the government, the only way the government can solve that problem now is to give them a subsidy. The government cannot bring down overnight its cost of power. The only option is to give a subsidy, and that subsidy ends up with circular debt. Wheeling opens up the opportunity that those customers who are not willing, able, and capable of buying power from the grid at the prices which the grid is offering, they can go off the grid and do a bilateral contract with a supplier of electricity. And CTBCM basically gives you that flexibility that you can use the grid wires, but you are now not in the regulated tariff regime at all. The new mechanism that has come, it gives a good solution to what used to be called banking, but was taken away in the wheeling policy. Bhutto Sahab, did you already talk about wheeling, sir? Yeah, should I just banking, or should I just explain that a little bit?
Yeah, banking to balancing, we explained. You can touch upon, but always your explanation is nice.
Let me just do a short example. If we have a client who requires 20 megawatts, 24 hours, and we are going to provide them solar power, naturally, if we set up a 20 megawatt plant of solar, it is not going to give them 20 megawatts 24 hours. We would need to, based on the capacity factor, set up a 100 megawatt plant. So during daytime, it would generate, at any given time in the afternoon, 70, 80 megawatts. So we would have about 60 megawatts of excess, and the grid would be taking that. Previously, this was called banking, and we could offset the units on a daily basis. But today it has been changed that we are not doing banking anymore. During daytime, we have to take the risk of selling the electricity to CPPA on marginal cost, and during the evening hours, whatever our client then consumes, we as the seller of electricity in this case have to buy that electricity from CPPA at marginal cost and net it off. Even though that is a risky proposition, that for 20 years we are taking a risk on what Pakistan's grid's marginal cost every hour is going to be, we still feel that baat aage chalane ke liye, this is at least a workable way that we can move forward. We have convinced several clients to also agree on this, and with NEPRA support and CPPA support, we have put in the first application for a supplier license. Wheeling also eliminates the big problem that maybe you have not heard of, but there are many multinationals in Pakistan who have a mandatory requirement to have a zero carbon footprint by 2025, 2027. अगर हम उनको एक opportunity नहीं provide करेंगे to reduce their carbon footprint or to eliminate it, then there will be serious repercussions when it comes to either those companies and their existence in Pakistan or any future expansion in Pakistan. I mean, these are companies like your large multinational bottling companies or FMCGs or your large textile groups. They have very strict mandates when it comes to overall global carbon emissions. So, अपनी site पे तो वो इतनी power लगा नहीं सकते renewable पे. Solar is the only option which is economically viable that does grid parity. All of the others either have a higher cost of power or are not frankly that feasible. Like you cannot do biomass power that easily. Itni biomass availability hoti nahi hai. Wind is not available everywhere. Solar is pretty much the only choice, but solar mein space is a limitation. So you naturally have to move outside the boundary of the client. And wheeling under CTBCM offers you that opportunity that you can move outside the boundary of the client, set up a plant 100 kilometers away, and wheel power to them. The last part, which was the Achilles heel in wheeling, has been the wheeling cost. There's been a disagreement between the companies looking to wheel power and the regulators, where that number has kind of been bounced around. I think the one that the industry had kind of wanted was not accepted by CPPA. What CPPA wanted, the industry didn't accept, and the discourse also. We were waiting for that number to come out, but we feel that if that number is in line with what international benchmarks are, then we can make it work. And I don't want to quote a number here, but I just want to leave some food for thought that there are some international benchmarks that you could look at, Bhutto Saab and the colleagues from CPPA, not just from India, but then also from the US and the UK, that would give you some interesting numbers on what wheeling costs are being charged in those areas, to come up with a workable number. Those are not as low as what others had asked for, but are maybe not as high as what we were being asked by CPPA. They're somewhere in the middle. So I think आपको एक अच्छा number मिल जाएगा by looking at the US. Even like, for instance, I'll give you an example of a state of Texas में जो wheeling charges charge हो रहे हैं, या जो UK में wheeling charges हो रहे हैं, and I'm happy to share that offline. I will just pause there and see if you have any questions for me, and I can then conclude after that.
Thank you, sir. Now,
Just one remark for Umar Sahab, that when we look at the wheeling charges, we should not look at the wheeling charges which are being charged right now. We should look at the wheeling charges which were charged by different countries or entities when they started or opened up the market. So this is just one key factor which we should look at.
Sorry sir, आप कौन हैं? मुझे introduce करा देंगे जरा?
My name is Ahmed Qazi. I am the design head and manager over at CPPA.
अच्छा, Qazi साहब, you make a very good point. मैं सिर्फ इसलिए कह रहा था कि जो prices, can I speak in Urdu जी? Do we have any foreigners here? Yeah, it's okay.
yes, you can speak.
अच्छा, काजी साहब, इसके अंदर ये है कि अगर हम if we look at the tariffs offered by countries when they started, तो इंडिया में बहुत low tariffs offer हुए थे, और वो हमारे लिए शायद non starter हो, given I know what CPPA's position has been. So इंडिया में for instance कई जगहों पे पैसास में भी charge हुआ था. I mean the range used to be something like 50 Indian paisas to 4 Indian rupees. And the states that offered that 4 Indian rupees never took off wheeling, and the ones that offered a few paisas took it off, but then eventually they realized कि ये हमारे लिए workable नहीं है, फिर उन्होंने भी बढ़ा दिया. तो अगर आप आज देखेंगे कि किसका steady state number क्या बना जिसके ऊपर they have decided to continue with wheeling, तो वो आपको वही number मिलेगा, वो जो 3-4 इंडियन रुपए जो कि हमारे 8-9-10 पाकिस्तानी रुपए बनते हैं. So maybe that will be more in line with what we could probably work with. अगर आज हम कोई शुरू का नंबर लें जो बहुत लो होएगा तो वो probably stalemate बन जाएगा. But I feel that with today's prices, if it is in the 8, 9, 10 rupee range with solar prices, it may still be workable. But if we make it too much higher than that, then it won't. Then it will probably be a non-starter again. I don't know आपके क्या views हैं उसके ऊपर काजी साहब के, do you feel that this range that Texas में for instance it is being charged in that range, and same for UK, would that work for us?
So ये determination तो नेपरा के end पे है.
जी जी,
लेकिन CPPA का एक ऑफिशियल व्यू वो जब डिस्कशंस होंगी आगे तो हम दे सकते हैं.
मैं कैसे काजी साहब ने एक पॉइंट वैलिड दिया है और आपकी भी बहुत नाइस एक्सप्लेनेशन है. तो अब रिलेवेंट फॉर्म पे हम थोड़ा सा इसको आगे बढ़ाते हैं. देखिए, ओपन एक्सेस रेगुलेशन 2022 की, जिसमें व्हीलिंग रेगुलेशन 2016 को हमने रिपील कर दिया. ठीक है, अब ओपन एक्सेस के अंदर अगेन मैं कहूंगा व्हीलिंग रेगुलेशन एक सबसेट है. क्यों कि ओपन एक्सेस के अंदर हमने इन्वेस्टमेंट का भी कवर किया है कि अगर जनरेटर ने कनेक्ट होना है और उसके पास नेटवर्क कहता है मेरे पास पैसे नहीं है, मेरे प्लान में चीजें नहीं है, तो हमने ऑप्शन दे दिया है कि जनरेटर ने व्हील करना है, ट्रांसमिशन की कॉस्ट नहीं होती, वो कनेक्शन अगर फाइनेंस कर दे तो वो कर दे. तो अगर ओपन एक्सेस अगेन जो है उस व्हीलिंग सब्सिडी, उसकी रेगुलेशन 7 में हमने जाके कहा है कि इसको हमने कोई सितंबर में अभी नोटिफाई किया था. 3 महीने के अंदर डिस्कोस ने 2 चीजें लानी है नेपरा के पास: यूज ऑफ सिस्टम चार्ज की एप्लीकेशन पिटिशन और यूज ऑफ सिस्टम एग्रीमेंट का टेम्पलेट. तो आज के सेशन में मेरे ख्याल से ये पहली मैं ब्रेकिंग न्यूज दे रहा हूं कि 2 डिस्को के हमारे पास ये यूज ऑफ सिस्टम चार्ज की एप्लीकेशन भी आ चुकी है गैपको की, और यूज ऑफ सिस्टम एग्रीमेंट का टेम्पलेट भी आ गया है. यूज ऑफ सिस्टम एग्रीमेंट का टेम्पलेट तो कॉमन होगा 10 डिस्को के लिए, सिर्फ उसमें क्रोनोलॉजी या एक्रोनॉम्स चेंज होने के डिस्को वाइज नेम है. यूज ऑफ सिस्टम चार्ज पे अब ये 3 महीने में वो एप्लीकेशन आ गई, अब अथॉरिटी ने डिसाइड करना है। अब मेरे ख्याल से एप्लीकेशन पहुंची है, मैंने इस हफ्ते 2 एप्लीकेशन और किसी एक गैप को नहीं दिए, और मेरे पास अभी मार्क होनी है, एक एस्को की भी आ गई, एस्को वाले भी बैठे होंगे, तो अब उस पर डिटर्मिनेशन बाय अप्रैल उमर साहब आ जाएगी। तो आई थिंक दिस अ गुड अपॉर्चुनिटी आपके यहाँ इनसाइड, और आपको पता है रेगुलेटरी प्रोसेस में तो फिर इसने एडवर्टाइज होना है, एडवर्टाइज होगी, स्टेक होल्डर के कमेंट्स होंगे, तो मेरे ख्याल से आपकी इंटरवेंशन काफी हेल्पफुल होंगी टू रीच टू अ रैशनल नंबर, जिसपे एक विन विन सिचुएशन क्रिएट हो, ताकि ट्रेड हो सके, ना उनकी ना इनकी, एक एक्सट्रीम भी ना हो। देखिए पूरी एक्सट्रीम थी, 0 स्टैंडर्ड 0 क्रॉस के साथ, वो एक एक्सट्रीम थी, वो कोर्ट में चैलेंज हो गई। ये भी पूरी एक्सट्रीम हो गई कि अगर 100% स्टैंडर्ड 100% क्रॉस सब्सिडी अगर 16 रुपए हो गई तो भी एक्सट्रीम होगी। 0 आई मीन देखें, व्हीलिंग 5 कास्टों की हमने बात की थी, उसमें ट्रांसमिशन डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन लॉसेस, ये 3 नंबर तो डिटरमाइंड है ना, हर डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन के कंपनी में डिटरमाइंड है। आज अगर हम ये बात करेंगे हमारे पास व्हीलिंग चार्ज का कॉस्ट नहीं, तो पहुर जो आज व्हीलिंग कर रहा है उसके पास टैरिफ है, और ये टैरिफ अगर कोई आ भी जाए तो 3 कंपोनेंट डिटरमाइंड है। अब रह गए 2 कंपोनेंट, जिसके लिए अथॉरिटी ने कहा था कि स्टैंडर्ड कॉस्ट और क्रॉस सब्सिडी वो 0 थी। वो क्यों थी वो भी मैं बता देता हूं। देखें लॉ में और पॉलिसी में उसका प्रोविजन भी नहीं था ना, सीसीआई से पॉलिसी आई, उसने उसका प्रोविजन भी डाल दिया और तमाम चीजें आ गई। सारी चीजों को फ्रेमवर्क में एक्नॉलेजमेंट, सब्सिक्वेंट क्रॉस और स्टैंडर्ड का ना होना जनवरी 2021 का 21 का फैसला है, 11 जनवरी 2021 का फैसला है। उसके बाद 3 फ्रेमवर्क आ गए। ओपन एक्सेस के अंदर 5 कास्ट है, एक्नॉलेज की नेफ्रा ने। परफॉर्मेंस स्टैंडर्ड सप्लायर के जो नोटिफाई किए हैं 22 में, उसमें भी एक्नॉलेज की। एनी पॉलिसी 2021 वो बाद में आती है, उसमें भी उन जिक्र आ गया, कॉस्ट अराइजिंग ऑन एडवेंट ऑफ अ लिबरलाइजेशन। तो अब पॉलिसी रेगुलेटरी फ्रेमवर्क लाइन हो गया 2 कंपोनेंट पे, उसमें अथॉरिटी ने डिसीजन देना है। 3 तो अनडिस्प्यूटेड है और इन फील्ड भी है, वो है ही कॉस्ट कितनी, वो 1.5 रुपए 2 रुपए की, बाकी है इस 2 नंबर को होना है। तो मेरे ख्याल से इस पे स्टेक होल्डर कंसल्टेशन होगी, आपकी रिसर्च, आपकी ये जो ग्लोबल एनालिसिस है ये हेल्प करेगी, तो इसको उस प्रोसेस में ये रेजोल्यूशन की तरफ चली जाएगी।
Thank you, Mr. Gul Hassan. Now I would request Ms. Alia Dries from K Electric to share her thought.
Yeah, before Alia says something, I would also leave the one discussion point for the forum and not to be discussed now. I think sometimes when we look at innovation and new ideas, and perhaps when you look at transforming any sector, we look at it at a national level. क्या हम ये नहीं कर सकते कि हम अपनी जो भी आइडियाज हैं, से फॉर एग्जांपल व्हीलिंग विच इज वेरी गुड आइडिया एंड वी ऑल अंडरस्टैंड कि इसके डिविडेंड्स क्या है, तो इसको हम से स्पेशल इकोनॉमिक जोन्स में अप्लाई करें। उसको अप्लाई करने के बाद उसको टेस्ट मॉडल के तौर पे देख लें, एज परहैप्स यू सेड और उमर भाई ने कहा, मे बी सेंटर ऑफ एक्सीलेंस क्रिएट करें और उससे थ्रू एक इंक स्पॉट डेवलपमेंट मॉडल आप ले जाएं, लाइक स्प्रेडिंग अक्रॉस द नेशन। हमारे यहाँ प्रॉब्ली ये चैलेंज होता है कि हम बहुत वाइडर रेंज पे अपने कॉन्सेप्ट्स को और नए आइडियाज को एक्सरसाइज और प्रैक्टिस करने की कोशिश करते हैं। उसकी वजह से जो सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज परहैप्स पाकिस्तान में आता है वो ये होता है कि स्टेक होल्डर्स बढ़ जाते हैं। अब जब स्टेक होल्डर्स बढ़ते हैं तो डिबेट बढ़ जाती है, डिबेट बढ़ती है तो समटाइम्स वो एक नए टेंजेंट की तरफ चली जाती है और आउटकम बॉक्स अप नहीं होता। सो आई वुड ऑल्सो इंसिस्ट कि आप इस लिहाज से कोई अपनी जो डिस्कशन है एट रेगुलेटरी लेवल एंड ऑल्सो एट कंज्यूमर लेवल, या उमर जो कि इज राइट इन बिटवीन इन टर्म्स ऑफ एन एनर्जी कंपनी, आई थिंक इसको भी जरा आप एक आइडिया दें, बिकॉज वी फेल्ड दस फार टू ब्रिंग इवन वन गुड स्पेशल इकोनॉमिक जोन जो कि इंडस्ट्रियल डेवलपमेंट, जस्ट वन। तो हम बातें तो 37 की करते हैं लेकिन एक भी नहीं हुआ।
मेरी तरह रिक्वेस्ट होगी क्योंकि लंच का भी टाइम हो रहा है, तो आई थिंक
I think with this said I would request Alia perhaps to speak on this.
Thank you SDPI for this opportunity today. I think you have brought a very insightful topic to the table today, wheeling and the reforms that are much required. When it comes to wheeling reforms, I think this encourages investment in the power sector, and it will eventually bring an economic uplift. KE has a very robust investment plan for 2030, and we will be investing 500 billion, not only in the generation side of the business, but also in the transmission and distribution infrastructure reinforcement. KE has a very ambitious target for renewable energy. We will be injecting 30% of RE by 2030, which would include predominantly solar, but also wind and hydel. We would encourage NTDC to help supply of power from affordable sources such as hydel to say areas in Karachi. So again, a collaborative and collaborative work is required when it comes to wheeling. So from affordable sources to say customers in Karachi. When it comes to determining optimal rate for wheeling, we believe that T&D losses of the discos and transmission network must be accounted for. Not only, they should be considering use of system charge, but also stranded costs in the system and cross subsidies. They should also be considered when determining the rates of wheeling, and its brunt should not fall on the regulated customers today. We believe customers who transition from a regulated market to an unregulated market, say when the market opens up under CTBCN, those charges should be applicable to customers who transition from say a regulated to an unregulated market. We believe that regulated market today already subsidizes our bulk power customers and industrial customers, so that they're not ready to bear that brunt. A safe and fair mechanism is needed. It must be provided to all the players and partners in the fraternity, and a level playing field is required. When it comes to wheeling, I think grid stability is one of an essential elements that should be considered today. Transmission and distribution reinforcement, infrastructure reinforcement is equally important. I think SDPI has arranged a great session today. There has been lack of public awareness around wheeling, and this session brings all stakeholders together to talk about it. NEPRA has played its role when it comes to discussing on wheeling, how they have transitioned from B2B wheeling and CTBCM today. So a lot more of these sessions are required. We believe that interconnection and standards procedures for RE integration in the mix is also equally important and essential. And this will bring a consolidated reform strategy for all the stakeholders to collaboratively work towards bringing something that is essentially important and workable for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alia. Now I would request Mr. Mohammed Salman Khan, who is from Swabi Chamber of Commerce, to share his point of view.
Thank you, SDPI. मैं जो आज का टॉपिक है व्हीलिंग के हवाले से या इस सिलसिले में जो पॉलिसी बनाने की कोशिश की जा रही है तमाम स्टेक होल्डर्स की जानिब से गवर्नमेंट को फैसिलिटेट किया जा रहा है, उसके बारे में ये जिक्र करूंगा कि जो हमारा नेशनल जीडीपी है उसमें वेरिएशन का फिगर बहुत ज्यादा है। उसकी वजह यह है कि 2018 तक हमारे बारे में ये एक्सपेक्टेशंस थी कि हम दुनिया की इमर्जिंग जो मार्केट्स हैं उसका हिस्सा बन जाएंगे, लेकिन फिर कोविड आया और कोविड के बाद जो मौजूदा क्राइसिस है, सूरत हाल है उसमें, तो ये जो चीजें हैं ये हमारे नेशनल जो प्रोग्रेस है जीडीपी का उसको बढ़ा रही हैं, और उसमें जो हमारी कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन है जो उसका सबसे मेन इंग्रेडिएंट है या मैंडेटरी जो उसके लिए है पावर की अवेलेबिलिटी, उसको बढ़ा रही है। दूसरी चीज ये है जी कि हमारी कैपेबिलिटी और जो हमारी कैपेसिटी है उसका एक वेरिएशन है। जो कैप्टिव पावर्स के हमारे पास मौजूदा सेटअप्स हैं उनके बारे में पॉलिसी और रेगुलेशंस का ये जो उनकी कॉस्टिंग के इश्यूज हैं। तीसरा ये है कि जो दुनिया है वो सस्टेनेबिलिटी की तरफ जा रही है, हमें भी अपने जो इंडस्ट्रियल प्रोडक्शन है उसके लिए कुछ ऐसे सस्टेनेबल एनवायरनमेंट प्रोवाइड करना होगा, ऐसी पॉलिसीज देनी होंगी कि वो उसमें रहकर इकोनॉमिकली जो है वो काम कर सकें। इधर डिस्ट्रिक्ट स्वाबी में हमारे पास पेहोर हाइड्रो प्रोजेक्ट का जो चल रहा है और उसकी पहली जो व्हीलिंग की बिड हुई थी सक्सेसफुल थी, लेकिन उसके बाद जो इश्यूज आए तो उसके ऊपर हमने काफी वर्कआउट किया है, कैप्टिमा के साथ किया है, और SDPI को भी मुख्तलिफ फोरम्स पे लिख के दिया है। तो मैं ये समझता हूँ कि जनाब गुल हसन साहब ने, हसन दाऊद साहब ने, और जो दीगर शुरा हैं, मीटिंग के स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं अपने अपने डिपार्टमेंट से, वो यकीनन इस फोरम के थ्रू किसी ऐसी पॉलिसी की तरफ पहुंचने की कोशिश कर रहे होंगे जहां पर तमाम स्टेक होल्डर्स के लिए, गवर्नमेंट के लिए और दूसरे इंडस्ट्रीज के लिए या दीगर डिपार्टमेंट्स के लिए एक ऐसी विन विन सिचुएशन पैदा हो जाए जिससे हम ये व्हीलिंग का जो है इसके ऊपर बेहतर परफॉर्मेंस दे सकें और हमारी इंडस्ट्रियल प्रोडक्शन जो है उसमें जो मेन इंग्रेडिएंट है पावर की अवेलेबिलिटी, उसके इश्यूज हल हो सकें। तो थैंक यू SDPI, आप लोगों का बहुत शुक्रिया, थैंक यू।
Thank you, Mr. Salman. Now I would request Saptar Hayat from PIDO to share his thought on.
My name is Safdar Hayat, representing Energy and Power Department. I would like to thank you SDPI for inviting us on a floor which talks about the wheeling, a point of interest for specifically for the KP province as well. Actually, Mr. Imran had to come, but due to some emergency, he couldn't join the session. And I will precisely and briefly go through my points. At the first ever wheeling has been carried out the KP province for 18 megawatt pure hydel power plant with a strike rate of 7.5 pkr per kilowatt hour, and I think with the wheeling charges of 4 pkr per kilowatt hour. Recently, that has been a success story for the KP province. And in the second phase, we also initiated for 149 megawatt, but unfortunately that has been discouraged, has been discussed on the floor several times. And currently we have got the opportunities in the form of hydel projects that has been under implementation in different modes. And we have also got, we are also working on hybrid plants, wind and solar. And for that, we are in talks with KE, just I talks a little earlier, that we are taking all these hydropower plants to the KE, as Uzgor is currently in, I think they have got an agreement with KE for off taking that Uzgor 84 megawatt from Chitral to the K electric facility, and that we are extended with them, inshallah, in future for around 1000 megawatt till 2030, that we will be injecting in a system through wheeling. But one thing I will ask clarity from Bhutto Saab, that wheeling specifically talks about 11 kV and 132 kV. What about if we are going for 1000 megawatt to KE? I would request for clarity in this regard, that the system will involve NTDC line, and I think it will be an NTDC line, not the DESCO. That how it will be under the open access, I don't know about the open access 2022 regulation, that how it will cover this scenario, that if we are going for or taking our hydropower projects to the KE, what will be then the scenario? And second thing, what we are talking about hourly basis banked energy we are eliminating from the system, and we are talking about hourly basis trading. So I would ask clarity about the system constraints, whether the system is in a situation, because in wheeling minute to minute synchronization is difficult and it is impossible. So is the system is enable enough to cater for the hourly basis trading? I would request for all for these 2 points from Bhutto Saab.
Sir, we can. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, SDPI.
Thank you, sir. Now I would request Dr. Khalid Waleed to share his thought.
थैंक यू सो मच। मेरे ख्याल से मैं इसको ब्रीफ ही रखता हूँ। एक छोटा सा कमेंट है सर, जो B2B हो रहा है वो आपकी जो रियल स्टेट सेक्टर है, आपकी जो हाउसिंग सोसाइटीज़ हैं, उनके लिए ना हो। दाऊद भट्ट साहब ने मेंशन किया था कि वो स्पेशल इकोनॉमिक जोन्स के लिए हो जाए, तो मेरे ख्याल से वो ज़्यादा डायरेक्टली और that would be more helpful for industrial production and industrial development of Pakistan. Thank you so much. Next year वो कर लेंगे.
Now I would request Akil Jafri from AEDB to share his thought.
Thank you, Ji. Thank you, SDPI, for inviting me here. I think much has been said, and I think Bhutto Saab has given a very detailed overview of the CTBCM and the wheeling regime within the CTBCM. It's a no-brainer today that renewables are a must for Pakistan, country like Pakistan, going forward, because if we want to develop our economy, stabilize our economy, then we need to lower the energy prices for all segments of the economy. Uh, that's why the government is focusing in the ARE policy and also in the NEP to have a share of more than 60% by 2030 and going forward also. Uh, Apart from the large scale projects and distributed generation at the consumer level for areas where there's no provision of electricity with the from the national grid, wheeling will certainly play an important role in the wholesale electricity market in the future. But there are some issues, as highlighted by Umar Saab and Pido, that need to be discussed, and a level playing field has to be created within the regulatory framework. They are, for wheeling, it is understood that wheeling charges will be there. But what about the cross subsidy and the stranded costs? If we apply too much of costs, as Bhutto Saab gave his example that CTBCM is just like a motorway which provides services to the consumers, domestic consumers, and large buses, and at the NP they have to pay the toll. But if we cost subsidize them, and we put stranded costs, because by using your own car or bus, the government is also providing train services, and the train railways are in a loss, and you have to pay the cross subsidy and the stranded costs of the railway, and you charge it from the consumers utilizing the motorways. That might not be a good start for them. So there has to be level playing field. The actual cost, and that will solar is cheap, but the viability will come when all the market segments are being the costs are recovered in a mutually acceptable and manner, that no one is getting a hit from the market. So I think NEPRA's role is of main importance in devising a robust regulatory framework. And one important thing NEPRA has been doing, carrying out training and capacity building. I think awareness in the masses, especially in the power sector, within the power sectors, and the experts within the power sector, it is of utmost importance, because with their feedback, only then we can have a good regulatory framework for the wheeling to prosper in the country. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I would request Mr. Ahmed Tanveer Qazi from CPPA. Kindly, sir, in 5 minutes, kindly share your views.
अच्छा, थैंक यू सो मच. ऑल्दो CTBCM और व्हीलिंग पे तकरीबन डिस्कशन हो गई है, मैं बस 2 से 3 मिनट लूंगा आप लोगों के. फर्स्टली, राइट नाउ आई एम वर्किंग एट CPPA, लेकिन मैं थोड़ा सा अपना बैकग्राउंड देना चाहूँगा विच इज़ इम्पोर्टेंट इन व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू से. मैं CPPA ज्वाइन करने से पहले एक बड़े सीमेंट और टेक्सटाइल मैन्युफैक्चरर के पास, जो कि जीरो रेटेड इंडस्ट्री थी, हेड पावर एंड यूटिलिटीज रहा था. तो मुझे शायद मैं प्रिविलेज्ड पोजीशन पे हूँ जिसमें मुझे प्राइवेट सेक्टर का भी पर्सपेक्टिव बड़ी इन डेप्थ काम करके मिला है, और उसके बाद गवर्नमेंट सेक्टर में भी काम करके बहुत इन डेप्थ मुझे एक्सपीरियंस मिला है कि गवर्नमेंट सेक्टर के क्या प्रॉब्लम्स हैं. उसमें एक पर्सनल एनेक्डोट है. जब मैं टेक्सटाइल कंपनी के लिए काम कर रहा था, एक प्लांट लग रहा था नया, उसमें आई हैड टू ब्रिंग पावर ओवर देयर. सबसे पहले मैंने ग्रिड के लिए वहाँ पे एक फीडर के लिए अप्लाई किया 5 मेगावाट के. वो फीडर आ गया, साथ ही हमने गैस के लिए भी अप्लाई कर दिया था. गैस थोड़ी लेट थी, तो जब हमने 5 मेगावाट के फीडर के लिए अप्लाई किया, फॉर द फर्स्ट 1.5 ईयर हमारा लोड फैक्टर था तकरीबन 80-85%, और उसमें हमारा जो टैरिफ था वो वॉल्यूमेट्रिक था. मुझे MDI की बेस पे सिर्फ 380 रुपीज़ देने पड़ते थे फॉर 5 मेगावाट. बाकी मेरे उस 5 मेगावाट के लोड के लिए जो गवर्नमेंट ने 6.5-7 मेगावाट लगाया होगा ट्रांसमिशन, डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन और रिजर्व मार्जिन रख के, उसकी सारी रिकवरी और पे बैक उस वॉल्यूम पे डिपेंडेंट था जो मैं कंज्यूम कर रहा हूँ. 1.5-2 साल मैं यूज़ करता रहा. फिर पता चला कि गैस आ गई है $6.5 पे, लेकिन गैस अवेलेबल है रात 10 से लेके सुबह 6 तक। तो हमने क्या किया कि जो हमारा लोड फैक्टर था, वो जैसे ही हम गैस पे शिफ्ट हुए तो 80-85% से हमारा गिर के हो गया 40-45%। तो गैस हमें सस्ती पड़ती थी, सब्सिडाइज थी, बट गवर्नमेंट ने वो 7.5 मेगावाट जो लगाए हैं, उसकी रिकवरी, मेरा टैरिफ तो वही है, उसकी रिकवरी अगर गवर्नमेंट ने 2 साल में करनी थी, अब वो 5 साल में चली जाएगी, या फिर गवर्नमेंट बाकी कंज्यूमर्स पे वही पैसे पास ऑन कर देगा। खैर, आई वॉज कम्प्लीटली एग्नोस्टिक टू द फैक्ट कि गवर्नमेंट को क्या हो रहा है, मेरे यूनिट की प्राइस तो गिर रही थी। आई सेड ठीक है, चलता रहे, प्रमोशन भी मिल गई उधर। खैर, उसके बाद फिर ऑप्शन मिली कि रात तो सॉर्टेड है, लेकिन दिन में सोलर लगा देते हैं, उससे हमारे दिन के भी यूनिट बच जाएंगे। तो जब वो लगाया तो हमारा लोड फैक्टर गिर के आ गया 20% पे। फिर प्रमोशन मिल गई, और फिर मैंने साथ दुआ पे लगा दिया वालदा को कि अल्लाह करे व्हीलिंग भी खुल जाए, तो जो दोपहर के बाद का टाइम है ना, रात 6 से लेके 10 तक, ये व्हील कर लेंगे और लोड फैक्टर 0 ले आएंगे। जो कैपेसिटी की कॉस्ट है वो तो किसी और कंज्यूमर को पड़ेगी, मेरा क्या जाता है, मैं तो इंडस्ट्री में बैठूँ। तो दिस वाज द माइंड सेट व्हेन आई वाज एट द प्राइवेट सेक्टर। फिर जब मैं गवर्नमेंट में आया तो आई रियलाइज द फैक्ट कि मेरा टैरिफ वॉल्यूमेट्रिक है, 380 रुपये मैं देता था प्राइवेट सेक्टर में बैठे, जबकि एक्चुअली पर मेगावाट शायद मुझे 4 से 5 हज़ार पर किलोवाट देने चाहिए थे अगर मेरा कैपेसिटी बेस्ड टैरिफ होता तो। लेकिन एनी हाउ इंडस्ट्री इससे एग्नोस्टिक होती है, वो नहीं करती। खैर, जब मैं गवर्नमेंट में आया तो वहाँ पे मैंने प्रॉब्लम ये देखा कि डिस्कोज वर ओनली कंसर्न्ड विद देयर डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन मार्जिन, उनकी कॉस्ट की रिकवरी कहाँ से होगी। CPPS was concerned कि पावर डिवीजन की रिकवरी कैसे होगी। दे वर कम्प्लीटली एग्नोस्टिक टू द फैक्ट कि अगर हम इनको सब्सिडाइज नहीं करेंगे तो इनकी रिकवरी तो हो जाएगी, लेकिन प्राइवेट सेक्टर डूब जाएगा। उनकी अगर एक्सपोर्ट्स आज competitive हैं तो वो competitive नहीं रहेंगी। दे डिड नॉट केयर अबाउट दैट एज अ पावर डिवीजन। एज अ पावर डिवीजन दे वर ओनली कंसर्न्ड अबाउट द फैक्ट कि उनकी किसी तरह सर्कुलर डेट कम हो जाए, किसी तरह रिकवरी ज़्यादा हो जाए, उनकी ओवरऑल जो कॉस्ट ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस है वो कम हो जाए, चाहे एट द स्टेक ऑफ प्राइवेट सेक्टर या इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन हो। तो आई रियलाइज दिस फैक्ट। और उसके बाद अगर व्हीलिंग आ जाती तो उस पे होता फिर ये, जिस तरह भुट्टो साहब ने बताया, व्हीलिंग में हमारी क्योंकि स्टैंडर्ड कॉस्ट रिकवर नहीं होगी, क्योंकि हमारी क्रॉस सब्सिडी रिकवर नहीं होगी, वो कैपेसिटी कॉस्ट रिकवर नहीं होगी, तो इंडस्ट्री तो ग्रो कर जाए शायद, लेकिन जो बाकी कंज्यूमर्स हैं उनको या पावर डिवीजन उनसे पैसे उनके बिल्स में रिकवर करेगी, या अगर उनको पास ऑन नहीं करेगी तो वो इनडायरेक्टली टैक्सेस की मद में गवर्नमेंट को देना पड़ेगा, या सर्कुलर डेट में खड़ा हो जाएगा, तो इनडायरेक्टली बाकी कंज्यूमर्स पे पड़ेगा। तो हम ये नहीं कर सकते, हम सिंपली व्हीलिंग अलाउ करके और कोई चार्जेस लगाए बगैर अपनी कैपेसिटी को स्टैंड नहीं करा सकते। हमें इसका कोई सोल्यूशन चाहिए था। CTBCM एक तो ये सोल्यूशन देता है। उसके बाद व्हीलिंग में अगर आपका कॉन्ट्रैक्ट हुआ है किसी BPC से, आपका BPC अगर उस टाइम कंजम्पशन नहीं कर रहा तो आपके पास शायद ऑप्शन नहीं होती कि आप किसी और कंज्यूमर को दे सकें। तो जनरेटर्स को भी एक्चुअली नुकसान होता है कि उन्होंने व्हीलिंग कॉन्ट्रैक्ट किया हुआ है 10 मेगावाट का, अगर वो 15 जनरेट कर रहे हैं तो अब वो किसी को नहीं बेच सकते। और CTBCM वो प्रॉब्लम भी हल कर देता है। फिर कॉस्ट एलोकेशन के, अगर मैंने एक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कंपनी से कहीं दूसरी डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कंपनी में मैंने कहीं पावर पहुंचानी है, जिसको हम व्हीलिंग कहते हैं और CTBCM में ओपन एक्सेस कहते हैं, वो भी हम अब CTBCM के अंडर कर सकते हैं। यानी मैं ब्रॉडली लेमन टर्म्स में बताना चाह रहा हूँ कि CTBCM is a superset of wheeling which is fair for industry as well as for the power sector। लेकिन इसमें इंपॉर्टेंट जो उमर साहब ने कहा वो ये है कि जब नेपरा डिटरमिन कर रही हो तो वो सिर्फ पावर सेक्टर का ना सोचे, वो ये सोचे कि अगर थोड़ा सा कम कर दूंगा इस लेट से चार्ज को, या ज़्यादा कर दूंगा, तो मेरी एक्सपोर्ट्स पे क्या फ़र्क पड़ेगा, मेरी जो सब्सिडीज़ में दे रहा हूँ उस पर क्या फ़र्क पड़ेगा। और एक होलिस्टिक पाकिस्तानी व्यू लेके, ना कि पावर डिवीजन का या इंडस्ट्री का व्यू लेके, हम वो स्टैंडर्ड कॉस्ट और क्रॉस सब्सिडी निकालें, विच शुड बी फेयर फॉर ऑल। This is my concluding remark. I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, I would request Ms. Aisha Khan, who is Chief Executive of Civil Society Coalition for Climate Change, and request her to conclude this session with her vote of thanks to all speakers and participants. Sir, sir, we will take the questions in the end after. Oh, okay.
We have to decide whether it's in the public sector or the private sector. This public-private partnership is the bane of Pakistan. We have never really managed it properly. In the 90s, the World Bank said public-private partnership. Thatcher did this in the UK, health services, transmissions, railways, and so on. And then 10 years later, the World Bank said we made a mistake. You have to decide these things will remain in the public sector, these in the private sector. Now, many other points I want to make have already been raised, but capacity versus जो है आपकी generation of wheeling की है, इसलिए capacity availability क्या है? हम बात करते हैं जी capacity है available है, भाई generate ही नहीं करते. The contracts like for example like K Electric and others, आप base की capacity का आपने इतने का लगा दिया, आप payment करोगे, क्यों करोगे? It should be on what you deliver. You don't don't pay a cement plant, cement की इतने tons का plant लगाया हुआ है, आप जो deliver करेंगे उसकी cement की price वो होती है. दूसरी चीज, solar. I want to give you the example of Spain and Germany. I've written a whole book on this. I've talked in the Islamic Academy of Sciences and also in other countries in the Middle East. We forget one thing. There's a levelized cost of electricity generation. The wheeling second part of it. And solar and wind are intermittent. Like our hydro in Pakistan is also intermittent. भूल जाइए कि हो रहा है. It's only available for a few months of the year, 45-50% of the time. Why? People use it for agriculture. बंद कर देते हैं कि वो उनको जब इसलिए स्टोर कर रहे हैं ताकि वहाँ किया जाएगा. तो जो वेरिएबिलिटी है, इंटेंसिटी है, तो स्पेन और जर्मनी में जो टैरिफ्स रखे थे सोलर और विंड के लिए, everybody wants 5 years, then they did for 10 years in Germany, then they said this can't go on. So what happened? Solar system faded out. The Chinese bought these solar plants and then they, of course, you know where they've gone. One other thing, wheeling, multiple sources of generation and multi-billion users, there's a question of technology. And now with all these solar systems, home plants, and they're feeding the system into the grid, net metering and so on, there's a problem of frequency synchronization, a very serious problem. And this has to be tackled. It's a pure electronic technology problem. One other thing that I'll stop. Linking on exports with energy charges, I disagree. I disagree totally. It's got nothing to do. There's just a way of winning subsidies from the government. हमारा खुद जो करते हैं, उनको ना production करते हैं. Exports have to do with you produce that which the customer wants. And lastly, carbon trading की किसी ने जिक्र नहीं किया, वो लोग बात करते हैं. It is one of the biggest scandals in the world. 2018 में ये क्या नाम है, Amazon है और इन कंपनीज को फाइन किया गया. कहते हैं जी हमने कार्बन ट्रेडिंग कर दी. वो ये मुल्क है, वो कार्बन सोलर एनर्जी लगाई हुई है, हम उससे खरीद लेते हैं इस रेट में और हम अपनी इसकी वजह हम ये करेंगे. अब तो उन्होंने वो गंदी पैदा कर रहे हैं, उसी तरह कर रहे हैं. सो कार्बन ट्रेडिंग और जो रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी की जो वेस्ट है, I want to finally emphasize this. Be very careful. Wind part is a little better, but renewable energy, solar की waste जब कहते हैं 25 साल लाइफ है solar panels नहीं है 25. I'm telling you, I'm a scientist. My field is optics and lasers. ये नहीं है लाइफ. उसमें क्या है कि Pakistan is now already one of the top 2 or 3 receivers of solar energy panels जो है उनकी waste के लिए, and these are very toxic. So let's just think of that holistically. Just stop here. Thank you.
Can you
Thank you, sir.
just give me 1 minute because sir has raised a few good points. देखिए एक तो कई वाली व्हीलिंग कई ऐसा ही है जैसे एक रेगुलेटेड डिस्को है. डिस्को हाइड्रो जो है एजेके से भी उठाता है, वहां से भी उठाता है. दैट्स नॉट अ व्हीलिंग. एक रेगुलेटेड के लिए जाना है, उसके लिए तो फ्रेमवर्क क्लियर है ना कि एक कई जनरेशन अगर गुल टपाल से खरीदता है 2000 मेगावाट एक इधर से भी लेता है तो उसका तो फ्रेमवर्क क्लियर है. अगर वहां से भी लाता है तो वो एंटिटी के साथ वो अरेंजमेंट हो जाता है. कंस्ट्रेंट्स वाला उसका नहीं है. B2B नहीं है सर, ये मार्केट इंडस्ट्री के लिए है. इस वक्त जो खोला है 1 मेगा, कोई घर नहीं है जिसका 1 मेगावाट अबाव लोड हो, तो दिस इज होल फॉर B2. ऑक्शन वाज द मेन पैरामीटर दैट वी हैव नॉट टॉक. अब फ्यूचर के अंदर 100% कैपेसिटी 100% कैपेसिटी जो प्रोक्योर होनी है, जो फ्रेमवर्क इन फील्ड है फॉर ऑल टेक्नोलॉजी would be auction based other than large hydro strategic few projects or something like that. सर वेरिएबिलिटी और इंटरमिटेंसी पे आईजीसेप नेक्स्ट 10 ईयर का विजन दे चुका है, और उसके अंदर जो हमें एनर्जी कैपेसिटी चाहिए, यानी कि बेस वर्सेस, और उसके हिसाब से वो वेल थॉट होके ट्रांसमिशन एक्सपेंशन प्लान उसके साथ इंटीग्रेट हो रहा है। तो डिमांड देखते हुए आज अगर 130 बिलियन यूनिट कंज्यूम कर रहे हैं, 207 बिलियन को ये एनर्जी डिमांड रेज कर रही है, अगले 10 साल में कैपेसिटी 40 वाली 62 को पहुंच रही है। तो ये मिक्स जो है लीस्ट कॉस्ट पे ऑप्टिमाइज हो गया है, रिलायबिलिटी और स्टेबिलिटी वाला कंपोनेंट जो है ट्रांसमिशन फैक्टर उन्हों के ये हो जाना है। फ्रीक्वेंसी 50.3 इवेंट ऑफ जर्मनी और ऑस्ट्रिया के अंदर, तो ये बहुत हाई चीज है। हमारे रिन्यूएबल अभी 2% भी नहीं है। आईजीसेप के अंदर 480 मेगावाट एडीबी ने प्रपोज किया है एवरी ईयर, तो अगले 10 साल में मैक्सिमम 4000 मेगावाट आ रहा है। तो फ्रीक्वेंसी 50.3 जैसे इवेंट, जैसे आप प्रिडिक्ट आप जर्मनी वाले कर रहे हैं, तो ये इवेंट शायद कोई हमारा मिक्स आ जाए। तो आज 40,000 मेगावाट के ग्रिड में नेट मीटरिंग हमारी जो है 500 मेगावाट है, और अगले 10 साल में मैक्सिमम ये 3000 को पहुंचेगी। तो इसकी भी एनालिसिस अपने, लास्ट बट नॉट द लीस्ट वेरी पर्टिनेंट पॉइंट आपने कहा, आरईसीज की किसी ने बात की नहीं की, रिन्यूएबल सर्टिफिकेट्स की। आज 10 साल से इंडिया में आरपीओज है, रिन्यूएबल परचेज ऑब्लिगेशन। अगर कोई आप कंजप्शन करते हो, एक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कंपनी अगर 100 यूनिट बेचती है, तो 25-17% का उसके ऊपर आरपीओज का ऑब्लिगेशन है कि आपने परचेज करने 17% रिन्यूएबल से। 2 weeks बिफोर अ पॉलिसी आ गई आरजीओस की भी, रिन्यूएबल जनरेशन ऑब्लिगेशन। अगर थर्मल जनरेटर तुम लगा रहे हो तो 25% तुम उसमें रिन्यूएबल भी करोगे। तो आरपीओज एंड आरजीओस का ये सारी चीजें। अब हमारे पास मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ क्लाइमेट, ये मैंडेट किसका है? ये मैंडेट है मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ क्लाइमेट का। आरईसीज की इस फोरम पे मैं भी तायद करता हूं, रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी सर्टिफिकेट की ट्रेडिंग की क्या बननी है, एक रजिस्ट्री बननी है। रजिस्ट्री बनने के बाद 2000 मेगावाट हमारे पास यूटिलिटी स्केल पे लगा हुआ है, वो उसका क्रेडिट लेने के लिए जितना ऑफसेट कर रहा है, अगर आरपीओस वो खरीद ले टेक्सटाइल वाले, उसको ट्रांसलेट करूं तो मेरे ख्याल से जीएसपी का हमारा ट्रेड उसमें हो सकता है। सॉरी आई एक्सटेंड बिकॉज़ सर के बहुत पर्टिनेंट सवाल थे, आई हैड आंसर्स दैट्स व्हाई मैं क्विकली कर दिया। बाकी लंच
Sir, we can discuss.
एक वो है कि आप रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी जो, सॉरी, हमारी जो है ये क्या कहते हैं लॉसेस हैं डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन के, इट्स ऑल थेफ्ट। 36-37% डज इट मेक सेंस? एस्को और पेस्को
नेशनल एवरेज सर
and
18 है।
circular debt I've written about it in detail, and you might like to read about this in one or two things I've written available in the Comstech website.
Thank
वो ये है जी circular debt,
Sir,
biggest single
we can
component
discuss this
is human
in the
beings
lab.
that don't pay their bills.
Now, I would request Ms. Aisha Khan, who is the Chief Executive of Civil Society Coalition for Climate Change, and I would request her to conclude this session with her vote of thanks to all speakers and participants. And also, we would request her to also officially announce the formulation of Steering Committee of Network for Clean Energy Transition and Research and Advocacy, which will be driving the research and advocacy of Sustainable Development Policy Institute. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, SDPI, for organizing this, and thank you to all the participants for being here. As a founding member of the network, it is a great pleasure for me to see how far the network has come in the last 1 year since we first started in this very room with the first meeting. So its scope has expanded as well during this time. And I think as I sit through the different discussions, I also see that the level and the quality of intervention has also improved. I'm not a technical person myself, and the network, I think that is the beauty of the network. It brings together diverse stakeholders from different disciplines. My own discipline is climate change, so energy is very much part of it, because mitigation is a big commitment that we have made at the Paris Agreement. And no matter how small a contribution, we still have to show progress on that. And energy remains the single largest drain on our economy. So finding solutions, and what I heard here today were different options that were coming from different stakeholders, and how to bring them all together to a point of convergence where we have just transition, because the ultimate aim for us is to reach a transition which is fair and affordable to all the people and for all the people. Along with this, I would also like to make a point about the key takeaway that I feel it needs to be reiterated is what Dar Saab said. Whenever we make policies or we make have talks like these, our ambitions are always very much on the bigger, grander side. So we do definitely need to make smaller interventions and then move towards scalability and plot a trajectory that is incremental in nature. So with that, I really appreciate the interventions that you made, because I myself learned a lot of new things and new ideas and the different points of views and the different options that are available and how these need to be converged. In fact, as I was listening, I was thinking that, at this table, we have so many competent people. I wonder why we have an energy crisis in Pakistan, because the solutions are all there. Again, maybe there's a disconnect between the policy, between the technical guidance that is provided, and between capacity for implementation. So I think there needs to be, a greater connect between these. Moving forward, I think, I need to also compliment SDPI to say that what started with a small group of people has now expanded into a large network with about 128 member organizations and about 47 individual experts who are contributing to the network. So as we move forward, there are different thematic areas that were covered. Today's session is about power wheeling. But earlier, we've already done some sessions, and there are some that are remaining. So I'll just share the others with you. Essentially, they're about revisiting the annual state of the renewable energy, where we stand. And as I heard from you today, we have options through hydro, we have options through solar, through wind, and all of them have their own set of problems. So we have to see which one is, or a combination of all of them that will take us to becoming energy secure in the next maybe decade. There was another one in which I participated earlier, and that was about, I think, energy access in the HK region, which is very, very important for us. Of course, we have the mangrove forest, we have climate commitments, we have industrial decarbonization. So all of these will be taken forward. The whole idea is to produce research and bring stakeholders together so that SDPI, in collaboration and through the network, can have a position paper that makes recommendations on a way forward. In the coming months, by March, I think there will also be a steering committee of a number of 10-member steering committee, and there will also be a subgroup, because what we need here is, as I see, there is technical know-how in the room, but there needs to be the in-between person who can then work as advocacy agents to take this agenda to stakeholders and make this part of policy and informed decision making. So there's going to be a group on climate diplomacy as well, because a lot of the energy trade that we have the potential for can be transboundary as well, beyond the country. So keeping all these things in mind, I want to really congratulate SDPI for taking this initiative and taking a network approach, because this, I think, is fundamentally what we lack in our country. We take silo approaches, and we don't think that, working together gives you better results. So we need to put differences aside, bring different people to the table, as has been done today and at other deliberations that I have had the privilege to attend, and moved forward in a more coherent cohesive manner. So look forward to future engagements and to the composition of the steering committee so that there is a more targeted, I think, momentum that is built for moving forward. So thank you everyone for being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Aisha Khan, and thank you to all the participants online and in person. The lunch is served and the team will guide to the restaurant. Any question you can share with at ubaid@stpi.org. Thank you all.